transportation needs so they can act uniformly, unitedly on our behalf. One example, of course, is one of the programs that Jaime noted, National Infrastructure Bank, is a program that MoveLA has been very, I think, instrumental in trying to bring to the public eye. In your packet, you'll see this little document here. And I call this to your attention not because we're going to ask you to take action on the Infrastructure Bank exactly yet, but I want to give you a sense of how this coalition in Los Angeles County has been developing. When we had the coalition that put together the campaign for Measure R, it was a business, labor, and environmental coalition. And that coalition was very successful. And one of the questions that was put to us afterwards is whether we thought that that coalition was sustainable. Would these communities continue to work together? There was histories of rivalries, there were differing priorities. In fact, none of these broad members had a long history of being involved in transportation planning issues. And the answer to that question, I think, is demonstrated by this sign-on letter for the National Infrastructure Bank legislation, which is now introduced on the House side by Congressman Rosa DeLauro of Connecticut. It will be introduced on the Senate side probably sometime after the first of the year by Senator Chris Dodd. This is a program which, if there's $25 billion, for example, from the TARP funds placed into the Infrastructure Bank account, it will enable this bank to make $625 billion worth of loans, which is an enormous sum to be available. And it essentially will be available to communities that have revenue streams to secure loans. And that is exactly what Measure R provides for us. So this, for us at MoveLA, has been a priority project. We've already got 5 Los Angeles County congressional members who have agreed to be co-sponsors of this legislation. We are hearing now that this is about to become a piece of the action in the so-called jobs bill after the first of the year, and that leadership on the House side has become very eager about this possibility, especially given that it does not require the federal government to either raise taxes or increase the federal deficit to create a midterm jobs program. The $25 billion out of the TARP fund would be sufficient for $625 billion in loans, and believe me, that would create a lot of jobs and build a lot of transit and a lot of infrastructure around America. This is an example you'll see on the left. The labor movement is very well represented. There are several other unions and associations, including the LA Orange County Building Trades Council, which will be joining this coalition. In the center, we see the environmental and transit advocates, and then on the right we have the business community beginning to show a strong presence here. The Chamber of Commerce. We will have, I think, several other major business organizations joining this sign-on letter, and we plan to submit that sometime in either end of this week or end of next week to demonstrate to the leadership in Congress that there is strong support on the West Coast for this idea. That's the kind of coalition we're building, and we will continue to build in support of this 3010 plan. And this is, we need you to engage in some of the preliminaries of political work. That means we need you to make calls, emails, and letters. Very straightforward. As things develop, we will then begin to put together delegations, both in the district and in Washington, that will show the diversity and the strength of this coalition here in Southern California. In your packet, you will find 2 documents I want to draw your attention to. One document looks like this. It's a chart of the Senate and congressional leadership that we need you to work with us to influence. These are the key leaders in key positions on the House side and on the Senate side that we need to influence. Senator Boxer's chair of the Energy and Environment Committee. She will have a key role in any legislation that affects transportation. Senator Dianne Feinstein is on the Senate Appropriations Committee. She too will have a key role in any legislation that has to do with money for anything, and certainly money for transportation. They need to be influenced. You will see in this chart, you will see that their district offices and their Washington offices are provided addresses, emails, and phone numbers and faxes as well as key staff. When you send your emails, we encourage you to copy it to the key staff to make sure that the staff in the various offices are talking about the onslaught that they're beginning to get, and it will grow like a drum roll. We want the whole office talking, not just whoever picks up the emails and the prescribed website email connections. We also want you to send letters and make phone calls with essentially the same message. We've given you a draft sample letter. When you signed in, you either gave us your business card or hopefully your email, and we will be following up with you to make sure that you are following through on these commitments that you, by your presence, have implicitly made. So expect to hear from us. We won't exactly hound you, but we need to have a drum roll growing here so that when comes time for us to put together our delegations of business leaders, labor leaders, and environmental leaders to go to these offices and to go to their Washington offices, we want them to know what it is we are talking about when we say 30-10 plan. This is very straightforward, in fact, on your part. What you really need to do is to follow through. If we do this, New York City got $4 billion for 2 subways out of the Bush administration in the last round of the transportation bill. That was a bill whose total funding was $283 billion over 6 years. The Obama administration is planning a $450 billion program. The Obama administration is far closer to California and Los Angeles than the Bush administration was to Democratic New York. If New York can get $4 billion in New Start's funding for its projects, Los Angeles County can certainly do as well for its projects. Not just New Start's funding, and when you look at your sample letter, you will see that while the first bullet will talk about championing, we want these people, these legislators, to champion our applications for New Start's funding, but there are other projects that are seeking other sources of federal funding as well. In particular, the Crenshaw Light Rail system, which was just approved, its route and technology just approved by the MTA board last week. That is a project for which we are seeking other forms of federal funding, and also the Gold Line, the Foothill Gold Line extension from Azusa to Montclair is a priority project as well. We are going to make this whole program work, or we will have a hard time making much of it work. We won Measure R because we stayed united. We will build this subway because the supporters of this subway will stay united with the county as a whole. That is our mission. And so your remarks, your message to Barbara Boxer or Dianne Feinstein, I'm sorry, Senator Boxer or Senator Feinstein, should include both of those messages. In addition, we want to urge the federal government to work with us to find a form of loan for our secured by our $40 billion revenue stream. Now that infrastructure bank, if it actually comes to pass, that will be a natural source of funding for us. And that is a program which the Obama administration strongly supports, and Obama as a candidate included on his website as a key program he wanted to initiate if he were to be elected. Well, he's going to get the chance, and it won't be very long. We think it will be a key part of the jobs bill because it does not require any deficit explosion to implement. So that could be a big opportunity. But as Jaime said, there are other opportunities, and our drumbeat needs to be to these legislators. We need your support. We need to be our champions. Los Angeles County is united. We need your help to finding us New Start's funding for this subway and the regional connector, other federal funding for our other priority projects, Crenshaw and Foothill Gold Line, and help us borrow money to get the job done. The benefits are enormous, both for Southern California and for the entire national economy. And frankly, when you put this together with the fact that Los Angeles County is leading the world in the shift to renewable power generation over this next decade, those two things, electric transit, electric automotive technology, and renewable power, is the closest thing that Copenhagen will ever find to a silver bullet to reduce greenhouse gases. We can be the model program, and really, the heavy lifting has been done. The $40 billion revenue stream is happening. We need to find ways to augment it early on. You're the key. Thank you very much for being here. I'll answer any questions that you might have if I can. We have others who are here.